watching The Jenny Lynn Show, and I'm Jenny Lynn Gleave, your host. And tonight, my guest is Steve Hamilton. He is an adventurer who has just returned from Chernobyl a year ago and has just made a documentary which he will tell us about. And considering what is happening in the Ukraine at this time in our lives, I'm sure you will find all that he has to say completely fascinating. So Steve, thank you so much, and welcome to the Jenny Lynn Show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited.
Excellent.
I can't
I'm
wait
glad
to
be
hear
here.
all about what happened when you went to the Ukraine last year, to Chernobyl,
Excellent.
and your views on what's happening now.
Okay.
So thanks for coming, and tell us the name of your documentary.
It's called Unimaginable, The Legacy of Chernobyl. Right now it is in post-production, so we're changing a few things about it with everything going on in Ukraine. I wanted to make a few changes just so it's a little more current more than anything. So I wanted to change things up just a little bit with it. So right now we're going to release it on April the 28th,
Okay.
which is the anniversary
Of Chernobyl.
of the Chernobyl accident, yes.
This happened in 1986.
In 1986, absolutely.
Wow.
Mhm.
It's amazing how time
Right.
flies.
It doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
So let's back up. So you're
Sure.
a young American.
hmm
Why would you have such an interest in Chernobyl that you would buy a ticket and fly all the way out there to get the story and actually make a documentary on
And not
its
speak the
legacy?
language as well, by the way.
Yes. So tell us why. I'm interested.
I had a teacher in third grade when everything happened that was from Russia, and his family was living in Kiev, in the area close to where Chernobyl was, the biggest city around there. And it was a big deal to him, and he taught us everything there was to know about how nuclear power works, what it is, the relevance of what happened, everything that third graders usually aren't taught about nuclear power. So it's something that was deeply ingrained in me. And then now that I'm able to make a movie of my own, I thought, you know what, I want to do this because it's something that's really, it's been with me for a long time.
Wow, it left an indelible mark.
It did, and that's something for teachers. If they, teachers do have they leave a good impression with kids.
Well, hopefully they all should, although it's
I
not
hope
always
so.
the case. So does this teacher know that you've done this?
I've looked for him, and the school said that he's kind of fallen off the face of the earth, and they haven't been able to stay in touch with him since. So I'm still looking for him.
Wow. Well, I hope you find him
Yeah.
because he should know.
Absolutely.
that
I'm going
he
to
left-
dedicate the movie to. He's one of the dedicated people to the movie. So
Oh, that's really awesome. So tell us about your whole journey there.
it was actually a great journey. When I first started planning it, I was a little nervous, a little apprehensive about going to a country I've never been to. I only know a few people there, and I don't speak the language. I don't have the customs down. I don't want to offend people when I go to film in their country. That's the last thing you want to do. Mostly I was not really afraid. I just wanted to make sure that I did justice to everything that happened and to the people that are there and that are affected by it. So that was the big thing for me, was to make sure that I did it the right way. Going was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be. It was the plane ride across the Atlantic is a lot longer than I thought it was. This is actually the first time I've been out of North America in my life. So going to Europe was a big culture shock. I think what I needed in my life.
I think it's very impressive that you
Thank you.
had the nerve to just pick up and go there.
Yeah.
So when you got there, tell us what happened.
When I got there, it was a little bit of culture shock. I have my friend pick me up at the airport, and he was giving me the tour of everything that was happening there.
Yeah.
And everything is pretty much the same, but just in a different language, different characters on on things. You can tell a lot of the logos are the same. McDonald's has the same golden arches there as it does here.
Can't miss McDonald's anywhere, can't you?
KFC, the same thing. It's all everything that's here is there for the most part. So.
Yes. So your goal was to go to Chernobyl
Mm-hmm.
and to find out what?
I wanted to go more than anything just so I could look and be there and see it for myself. And I think that was because I had so much lead up to it in my life. It was a big deal for me to go just to see this. I've been studying it for 25 years plus. So it was nice to actually go and see where everything happened and see the damage that's been done there and the buildings falling apart. You can see them on picture and you can see them even in film, but that doesn't do justice to the magnitude of everything that's there. It kind of feels a little bit like Ground Zero did in New York. You know something bad happened there just by, I don't want to say the energy, but just by being there. You just know something happened there that shouldn't have happened.
Was there an ominous air feeling
Absolutely.
around it? And so you got there.
Mm-hmm.
How did it measure up to what you had in your mind?
It blew every expectation I had of it away. It's when you get there, the building itself is not that big. It's actually kind of small. In pictures, I thought it was going to be this massive, building the size of like the Astrodome or something like that. But it was actually relatively small.
Mm-hmm.
And it's big in its own right, but it's not huge, colossal or anything. But being there, it's very wild. It's almost like a forest. You drive through about 3 hours of forest and jungle almost to get there. Not jungle, but forest for sure.
Is that because it's abandoned?
Well, most of the countryside in Ukraine is very woodsy. It's very rural, and when you're driving through it, that's just the natural way of the land there, and that's part of the way it is too. There are actually people that live in the city of Chernobyl, which is probably a 10-minute drive from the reactor.
And is that safe?
Safe-ish. I mean, the thing is the people that are there, they won't move. They're going to stay there for their lives. These are also the people that are working on the new cover, the new safe confinement cover that's going over the Chernobyl reactor.
Oh, they're actually making one.
They are indeed. It's huge. It's big enough to cover both sides of the reactor. So there's a big vent stack there, 2 big pipes coming out. They're going to take those down, cover it, and then they're going to eventually start to break down the parts of the reactor that are still there.
And the goal of this is to make sure that they have control over
Absolutely.
the radioactivity that's still in the area.
There's about 80 to 90% of the fuel still inside there. So what happened is the Russian government, the Soviet government, built a sarcophagus to go over it, which is just a cover, and because of the radioactive environment, they couldn't build it up to what it should have been built. So they had to put it on quick, and there's leaks, there's parts falling. It wasn't meant to be there for 28 years. It was meant to be there for about 10 to 15 years. So there are people that work in there daily to keep this thing up and running.
In Chernobyl, people are still working in there?
People still work inside there.
For what are they doing? What's the point of working there now?
They weld inside, they put bracing structures, they replace bad parts of the cover. Basically what happens is if something were to fall in there, if the roof were to collapse, God forbid that happens, but if the roof were to collapse, it'll turn all of the fuel that's there, that's still very, very, very toxic, very radioactive, it'll turn it to dust, and all of that dust will come out, and it could be really bad. It would, if the wind picked it up, it could go as far as Europe and all of Europe, the entirety of Europe. So it could cause a bigger disaster than the original disaster.
So how close were you able to get to the actual facility?
I
and how
actually
did you
touched
feel?
the outside of it. So
You did?
Yes.
Did you feel anything?
You feel a little lightheaded, and then you almost an upset stomach. So almost if you eat something that's spicy, the same kind of feeling. But then you walk away from it and you're fine. You're okay.
Did you have to wear any type of apparatus or cover?
No, I had a dosimeter on my arm and a Geiger counter that my tour guide carried as well. So that and long sleeve clothes, 3 layers of clothes. No, that was pretty much it.
Is that standard for going there, or are you just trying to be protected?
No, that's all they said. I initially had said, should I wear something that keeps dust out? And they said, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal.
Wow.
Overkill. It was pretty. My tour guide was wearing a t-shirt and shorts, so.
So the people there don't seem like they're too concerned about
they're
any danger.
You can only be there for about 8 to 10 hours at a time, even if you're in the safer areas. No.
Were you tested after you left to make sure
Yes.
that you weren't overexposed?
Absolutely. They test you. You get in and it's almost like a metal detector at the airport, but you have to put your hands up and You basically take all your clothes off down to your underwear and your shoes. They scan everything, and they make sure that you're not taking any radioactive material out with you.
So what was the thing that struck you the most when you actually got there? Because obviously you've been following this and you probably know more about it than probably some people living
Yeah.
there because of your fascination with it. When you got there, what was the one thing that really jumped out at you?
The biggest thing for me was I was in awe of this city that used to have 50,000 people in it has zero. It was myself and my tour guide, two people in this entire city. And there were guards, border guards and stuff, but it's it's like a city the size of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, being completely barren. Nobody there.
Are plants growing there? Are
Plants.
birds and
Absolutely.
animals still there?
The Mother Nature's taken it over. So there are buildings that are falling apart. There's an entire school where one wing of the school has fallen. You can see desks and pictures of. You can see all the propaganda on the walls still. It's kind of cool. It's kind of different to see that.
So basically, when Chernobyl happened, people just picked up and left, like when you know a storm is coming.
Yes, to a point. Yes, the Soviet government they waited a little while to see what was going to happen, and within 48 hours of the accident, they evacuated everybody. But they didn't take the whole 48 hours. They evacuated 50,000 people in about 2 hours.
Wow.
Just every bus, every armored personnel carrier, anything that could carry a mass of people was brought to Pripyat, the city that's the abandoned city now. And they told people you can get one change of clothes, your passport, your documents, and that's it.
Could you imagine somebody coming up to you and telling you that?
No, and so soldiers with guns telling you you're leaving now. You don't get a lot of choice in the matter.
What do you know what they did with the people when they evacuated them?
The lion's share of them went to Kiev, which is about 60 miles to the south. That's where most of the 50,000, there were about 40,000 residents there at the time.
So are people free to go in there and visit, or do they have very, strict rules about who can visit and when they can visit? Or can you just pick up and get in your car and go?
No,
there?
you do have to have a tour guide with you. It has to be a government approved tour guide. You have to have all your paperwork in order. You have to have a tour permit. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. It's not hey, let's get in the car and go to Chernobyl. Sure, why not?
Great picnic site.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my question for you is, as an American going there to do a documentary, did anybody there know that you were coming there to get footage and information for a documentary?
Most of the people did. The people that I interacted with, my friend that lives there was my interpreter, and he told them basically what I was doing, what was going on. So he kind of told everybody what the deal was, what was happening. So it worked out okay.
And since you didn't speak the language, how were you able to communicate?
There's a good amount of people that do speak English there.
Okay.
With the Western influence that's been there since they went independent in '91, there are a lot of people that do speak English still. So it actually works pretty well.
So this has happened 28 years ago, and it's hard to believe that 28 years has
Coming
gone
up on
by.
28, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It happened in 86, so this year would be 28 years.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen to that city? Is it going to be a complete abandon?
Yeah.
Or based on what you've heard after they've covered it, are people going to be able to live there again? Did you ever find out?
No, there's too many. There are hot spots where pieces of the graphite are embedded in the soil, and there are spots where you can't even walk, and there's big piles of moss growing over them, and they're far too radioactive for people to live there. People aren't going to inhabit that area for about 30,000 years, so it's not safe for people to live.
Okay, so apart from all of that, were you able to meet with anybody who has suffered any physical injuries as a result of Chernobyl?
I did meet a few people who they're affected, but mostly their children are affected more than the people that were there. So the generation that was there wasn't as affected as their next generation, their children. So their children are born with a lot of birth defects. With thyroid cancer is a big thing there.
Jeez.
It's really I think that the number is 6,000 times the amount of thyroid cancer is anywhere else in the world per capita. So it's real dangerous. The people that were there, it's not like the media portrays it here. It's real silent. Nobody knew what to do with it. Nobody knew that you have to throw away milk. They fed it to the children that were there. And milk actually holds the iodine, the radioactive iodine, longer. So these are things that we didn't know. Scientists didn't know this because nobody tested it. Nobody knows, what are you going to do if you dip a nuclear fuel rod into milk? Does it hold it? These are things you don't think about at the time.
But even though they evacuated them, it sounded like in a timely manner. They
Yes.
still got exposed.
Yeah, there were 2 days of exposure. What happened was there was an explosion in the reactor, and it's nuclear fuel, so it's not able to cool quickly. It took them a good 2 weeks to cool it completely. So this is a fire that's burning like lava essentially, and all of the isotopes are going up in the air. So they go up into the environment, and with the wind picking up, it just shuttles them out everywhere. So that's why the areas like in Gomel, Belarus, are some of the worst hit, because that's the way the wind was carrying it at the time. It could have been 3 to 4 million people affected if the wind was blowing the other direction towards Kiev.
So in a sort of a way, it worked out in their favor that the wind was.
Yeah, the city of Kiev would be in very bad straits right now. The worst part of that is the river that runs by Chernobyl is also the water source for Kiev, and it runs all the way to the Black Sea. So it could have been a much worse situation than it was.
How safe is it there now, do you think?
It's safe to be there for about 8 to 10 hours at a time. Outside of that, you're really taking risks.
And you felt a physical difference when you got up close to it. You
I
physically
definitely did.
felt them.
It's a weird feeling. It feels almost like the sound around you's gone. I mean, I don't think it does any damage, but it feels like you're in a vacuum almost.
How much of that is psychological?
Probably a lot. I would guess a lot of it is.
Because I think I'd be walking up there going, I don't know about being this close.
Yeah.
For
I
too
mean,
long.
it's probably a little bit metaphysical, but at the same time, there is definitely a physical and visceral reaction to touching it. I could feel the difference in my body from that.
So what is your hope now? What are you hoping to accomplish with the documentary that you've just made?
I have new information that I haven't seen anywhere else, so I think that there's a little bit of good breaking news in it.
Can we tell any of it on the Jenny Lynn Show?
We could tell a little bit.
Okay, let's go for it.
There was another accident that happened there 5 years before that, in 1981, where the reactor that sits in the same building as reactor number 4, 2 of the fuel rods fused together, and it started in a smaller explosion, but an explosion nonetheless. And the KGB kind of covered it up a little bit. They didn't say a lot because they could. And when the explosion in 86 happened, there was no covering that up. A satellite image was taken of a giant cloud coming out of a broken reactor, so they couldn't hide that.
Right.
But the one in 1981, they were. So there's a little bit of information about that in there, which I have yet to find information on, so I feel pretty good about that. And to answer your question, though, I do want to just raise awareness of what happened there. The media that we have here portrays it to be this just toxic, barren wasteland of, glowing animals and stuff, and it's nothing at all like that. Nothing at all like that. It would be like a campground in the U.S. It's beautiful.
Really, it's beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
Just not safe.
Just not safe, yeah. I wouldn't go eating the apples that are on the trees there or anything like that.
Or the fish that are swimming in the ponds.
Absolutely not. The fish that was kind of an interesting thing.
How do you control the fish from being consumed?
Well, they're the catfish that are in the cooling pond are the only creatures that can withstand radioactive water. Mm-hmm. Anything else that goes in there will be dead pretty quickly. It's the most toxic place on Earth, that water that's there. But these catfish, they grow to 10, 15 feet long because there's no predators.
Well, now Chernobyl has company.
Yeah.
There's Fukushima.
There is Fukushima. That's a little different the way that it happened. It was a natural disaster that sparked everything. But yeah, it's now on par. So it's kind of bad.
So if you get a chance, are you heading off to Japan to bring us another exciting documentary?
I would like to. The problem is right now it's very touchy.
Right.
Chernobyl, I was able to do that because the people that are in power then are no longer in power. Right. So people are more free and open to talk about what happened.
Right.
Right now there's still a lot of blame. The blame game is still being played in Japan.
So you just got back from Chernobyl a year ago, and now look what's happening in the Ukraine.
It's very different.
So how do you feel about what's happening there now?
I'm actually kind of sad. I do have friends that are there now. I made a lot of friends while I was there, and it's a really sad time that they're having to go through all of this because of a real corrupt government. And I think that's the main thing that they want to get rid of, is a corrupt, very corrupt government.
Are you in touch with them on a regular basis?
Yes, very much
safe?
so. They're actually doing okay. They are safe.
So, would you go back to the Ukraine?
Absolutely.
You would?
I wouldn't even think twice about it.
Though.
Yeah, probably not right now. It's not very safe right now, and actually they're not letting any Western travelers come in that aren't press or media, so I probably wouldn't be able to get in there right now anyways.
Right. And how long did you stay there?
I was there about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It's a little more than 2 weeks.
And what made the greatest impression on your mind besides Chernobyl?
Besides Chernobyl, which obviously makes a big impression on anything, is the people that were there that I met were absolutely amazing people. They've struggled so much throughout history, and their spirit it's really strong, and you can feel almost like a rebellion in them. That's, you know, they don't want to be put down, and I think that's why everything happened the way that it did in Kiev with Euromaidan.
Did you ever find out while you were there what caused the explosion at Chernobyl?
Yes, actually it was testing that happened that went bad.
Okay.
So there was, the real quick explanation is there was a lot of miscommunication, and safety methods were turned off that the crew that ran the test didn't know were off. They thought they had a safety blanket there and they didn't. And when they were running the test, they shut off the cooling system, but the cooling system was already shut off beforehand. So there was no cooling of the reactor. It overheated. There was no water to go in. They couldn't restart the process really quick. And by the time they figured out, it was too late. It was a time bomb.
And did a lot of people die? I can't remember. It's been so long ago.
No, the initial death toll was about 6.
Okay.
And that was people that died from the explosion. And then there were any of the first responding firemen, all of them died within 48 hours.
Did you go to Chernobyl more than one day, or you just went there one day?
One day.
Okay, and that was enough.
That was enough. Yeah, I got a great experience from being there, so I got more than I needed.
And now the documentary. Tell us about it.
It's basically, I want to tell the story of what happened there. I want it to be clear cut and concise, that this is what happened, this is why it happened. I don't want to sensationalize anything. I just want it to be real factual, and I want people to feel what it's like to be there now.
And I'm sure you're aware that other documentaries have been made about Chernobyl.
Absolutely.
Have you looked at any of them?
I've watched most of them, yeah.
How does yours compare?
I think that mine is not slightly, it's not leaning one way or the other. Okay. It's right down the middle. I think that mine's very unopinionated. Unbiased, just very factual. And that's my big thing. I want it to be right. And
yours is new. A lot of those have happened a long time ago, and so
most of them are 10 plus years old now, so they don't have the same. They haven't been there now to see the structures falling apart. Yeah.
I think you need to find that teacher.
I'm looking for him. So I'm hoping that me putting him in the film, putting his name in there, brings him out, because he was very interested in Chernobyl. So I think if a movie gets out there and his name's a part of it, hopefully he'll be quick to reach out to me.
Was he a resident of the Ukraine?
No, actually his family was from Russia, but when during Soviet times you could travel within the Soviet countries and anyone in the Union, and they lived near Chernobyl.
Why did he make it such a big part of your class when you were when he was teaching you? What type of class was he teaching?
It was just a basic third grade class. So he wanted us to know the truth of what was going on. And since it was real fresh, there was a lot of news, a lot of the media.
What was the subject? What was the subject? It was math, right?
No, it
not
was
your math teacher.
basically science.
He was your science teacher.
No, he was our one teacher. So in that age, you have one teacher.
Oh, okay.
So he taught basically that. He put everything else on the back burner and taught us just that.
So he was as fascinated as you are now with this.
He brought it out in me, apparently.
He needs to find out what he did
does.
to you.
He does.
He turned you into a little Chernobyl guru.
He turned me. He did. He did. Unfortunately, I know a lot about it that I probably shouldn't.
You probably know more about it than some people that are living there.
I think so. Maybe the people that live there, they know what happened. I mean, they live it every day, so they have that.
What do you mean they live it every day?
They live through the after effects every day, so they have to live with the consequences of what happened.
As in, they have to watch the water.
Yes, they have to. They can't drink water from there. If you're there, you can't drink water. You can't open a water bottle and drink it.
Why?
There's still the possibility of radioactivity getting into the water. So if you eat there, you can drink, but you have to close it immediately. You can't walk around with an open soda or anything like that.
Wow.
It's not
So
safe.
it's in the air.
There's the fear of it, so it's not safe to do that.
But you only felt it when you got close up to the building.
Yeah, other than that, I never felt.
How
any
close were
different.
you to the building?
Touching it. This hand touched the building.
Mm-hmm. On the outside.
On the outside, yeah. And
if you had gotten a chance to go in, would you have?
Absolutely not.
You wouldn't?
No way.
Ah, that's interesting. Because there are people working inside.
Yeah, they have full suits. They have lead lined suits going in, and even they can only work for a couple hours at a time.
But you did have your curiosity has limits. I see.
My tour guide asked, "Do you want to see? do you want to touch the building and see it?" And I'm like, "Of course I do. I came all this way. I'm going to definitely do that." So it was fun.
Is there a picture with you touching the building?
No, actually, they won't let you bring any cameras because of the high amount of radioactivity there. It could damage your cameras, and that would kind of be pointless for me to do that at the beginning and ruin the cameras before I even got there. So right. I erred on the side of caution with that.
So what do you want my viewers to know about this trip? Apart from the documentary, what do you want them to know about the Ukraine and about, your gutsy move of just buying a camera, not knowing the language, never having ventured to any place quite as far, and not only going that far, but going to Chernobyl and walking up and touching the building. What would you want to say to my young viewers that are watching this particular segment?
I think for the young viewers, definitely follow your dreams. Don't worry about what other people think of them. Do what moves you. Any day where you're doing something that you're passionate about, you're not working. You're actually doing something.
How many people told you were crazy when you told them you were doing this?
I would think it would be easier to count the people that didn't tell me I was crazy.
Sorry, didn't mean to laugh that loud.
I think most people did. Most everybody told me, "Why are you going there? You're gonna come back with a third arm or an extra eye or something." And it's nothing like that. That's the way the media portrays it, and that's another thing I want. That's the reason I want it to be out there and say, "Look, I came back and I'm okay. I don't have cancer. I didn't die. I'm fine."
I really admire your courage and your tenacity and everything that it took to get you there, to get the footage, get the story, get the experience, and then come back to share it with us.
Thank you.
Because there's so many people in life that lack courage, and they try to enforce their lack of trust, lack of courage, lack of whatever it takes to get to where they want to get in life, and they just stop because of fear. So someone like you, I have a tremendous amount of respect for.
Thank you.
Because you didn't listen to anybody, and that is gutsy. To go to a place that's considered dangerous and to actually physically go there and touch the building.
Yeah.
What did the building look like? What type of a structure? Was it concrete? Was it wood?
It's aluminum.
It's aluminum.
Yeah, it's old aluminum, and it has concrete around it. So the part that I touched was all aluminum. It was cold and just... It was kind of what I feel of it. It's cold. It's really impersonal, and you could feel the danger, even above the feeling of it. You could definitely tell that that's not something that's inviting.
What's the architecture like in the Ukraine?
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's the things that you would think of Soviet era architecture. It's very Gothic. It's just there's old buildings. There's a church there that's 1,000 years old. So, I mean, there's buildings there that people live in that are older than our country. So it's a great feeling to go and see these things that we don't have the same kind of history here in the U.S.
Did you take pictures of these buildings?
Many.
Okay, great. You're going to share some with us?
I will share some with you, yes.
I'll put them on this show so those interested viewers can see them.
Excellent, yes, indeed.
What about the food? What did you think of the food?
The food was fantastic. I thought I was going to go and not be able to eat anything because I have a couple of food allergies, and usually it excludes me from eating different cuisine, but the food was fantastic there.
Did you find a spirit of hospitality and family and camaraderie there?
I never met anybody that was anything short of fantastic. Everybody was very welcoming. Even if we had a language barrier, they were still very welcoming. Come in, have a drink. You know, they would definitely, they tried. Everybody is very nice there.
So your message is, if you are interested in something, even if it's in Timbuktu,
even if it's in anywhere,
find a way
make
and
it
go
happen.
and do it.
Do it.
Because you have no regrets.
I have absolutely no regrets of being there.
And you can't wait to go back.
In a second, I would go back.
And you have some phenomenal friends there.
I have a couple of friends that I met there that are fantastic. I met one of the gentlemen that I interview in my film was a liquidator. He was one of the guys that went and cleaned up everything. So meeting him was great to meet him and shake his hand and just know that he's very humble about it. But to know somebody who was a part of saving the world, he really was a hero of the world.
That is really awesome that you were able to connect with someone that was so closely associated with something that happened so long ago.
Absolutely.
Well, I am so grateful to you that you did this and that I am privileged to interview you about your upcoming documentary that's not out in theaters yet.
No, I'm going to probably release it very small, just very, very small. I've actually thought about just putting it out on public, just out for the public. I do want to raise funds for the children of Chernobyl. There's a couple charities.
That's great.
So any money that comes from the film is going directly to charities. There's two different charities, and they're all on my website. And
are you going to be following Chernobyl throughout your lifetime?
Probably.
Or are you done now?
Probably. It's going there was it helped a little bit to ease my curiosity, but now I know what it's like and I want to go back. I want to do it again.
Why do you want to go back? What are you going to see this time?
I don't know. I didn't see everything when I was there. I mean, there's only so much you can see in a 9-hour trip there. So I want to go and just experience the things that I didn't.
Why didn't you do those things on this last trip?
I had to really prioritize what I wanted to see and what I wanted people to see. There are buildings there that people still haven't gone in. So I'd love to go in those and just explore, just see what they're like.
Well, I am so happy that you shared this with me because Chernobyl happened 28 years ago. And the fact that you have gone out there and found out what's new and you're sharing it with us, I am thankful for.
Thank you.
And now that you've come back and all the stuff that's happening in the Ukraine, I think we just need to pray for those people.
Absolutely.
Sounds like they've been through enough.
They've been through more than a lot of people realize. They've been through many, many hardships, and even the last 100 years, they've been through a lot of hardships.
But they're obviously survivors.
Resilient people.
They survived Chernobyl, and hopefully what's happening there is going to calm down and get better before it gets worse. So thank you very, very much, Steve.
Thank you. Thank
for
you for
sharing this with me, and I can't wait to see the documentary.
Absolutely.
So it will be released in
the end of April. I'm going to release it on the anniversary of Chernobyl, the 28th anniversary.
And then if people want to watch it, how would they find out the details?
They can go to our website, and I'll give you the web address.
Tell us your website.
It's redhollywoodstudios.com.
And thank you so much for watching the Jenny Lynn Show, and I hope that you will be fascinated by the end product from Steve's experience.